Test, test. Ooh, that working? Hello? Test. That's okay. Morning, Kirsten. So, how was your weekend? It wasn't a weekend. No, it wasn't a weekend. That, oh no. And anybody else? That's too bad. How many exams do you have this weekend? This week, sorry. One. Okay, couple. Two. Three. Okay, 4, 5. Okay. Okay, there are some of you guys 0 exam. That's good. 1, keep on going. Ali, you got a 2. You got a 2. All right. You're gonna hang in there. All right. So I hope you saw the midterm 2 exam scores of yours. On eClass, if you haven't checked, please check. I sent a class-wide message. So in that, there's a class average and all that kind of details as well. So you can take a look at that. And if you have any questions, concerns, just let me know. But we're going to have the midterm 2 exam review class this Wednesday. So make sure you be there, ask questions. If you found any errors in the marking or anything like that, you can point it out. And we can talk afterwards if any of you have questions, concerns for the final exam strategies. But overall, as a class, it was much better actually, class average wise. So well done. Okay. Now, a couple other pieces of housekeeping information. First is this critical chapter reflection 2 on chapter 5 or 6. So your choice is due this Friday. So please do so. And it's based on your reading of the chapter, just as a reminder, right? So that's that. And how many of you are interested in a therapeutic recreation, just as a thought? Yeah, okay. So apparently I have to be talking and giving a webinar, and it's free. It should be free for U of A students too. So if you're interested in listening to me again, I'm not going to be talking about the same thing. So if you want to talk, do that, and then you can do. I don't know if that counts as anything otherwise. That's sponsored by Alberta Therapeutic Recreation Association, but it's also NCTRC pre-approved. What that means is that the American US side of the national certificate organization, they also approve other hours as well. So I don't know what that means. If you are not certified right now, I know it means something if you're already certified, but if not, not sure. But if you want to check it out, I'll put that information in our eClass and you can check it out. Okay, so today we're going to finish chapter 6 about leisure motivation, and we're going to keep on going with the chapter 7. But this is where we begin today. In the last class, we talked about how our motivation goes up, get better in terms of quality. Today we're going to talk about how can we fall down the ladder, as in go to the worst type of motivation. As you know, probably based on your life, and based on my life too, I know it happens, right? We were once upon a time intrinsically motivated. We're just enjoying, hey, Natalia, something. And then something happened and we're no longer intrinsically motivated. And one of the such mechanism and phenomena is called over-justification. What that is that you had intrinsic joy, intrinsic motivation, and we give you the external reward or punishment, and that quote unquote spoils your intrinsic motivation, that ruins your extrinsic motivation. For example, Lepper and colleagues experiment with the kids. I don't know if you read that chapter already. It was a classic one and an interesting one, so I'm going to show you, and this is how. So they got 3 kids. Little preparation. It's like a magic. They had 3 groups of kids, right? More than 3 kids, but I couldn't write too much. A, B, C. And the first round, they let play anything, like play with a toy or arts or whatever. Same activity. Once again, it has to be constant across the group. They enjoyed that to the same level, intrinsically motivated to the basically same level, because they were randomly assigned to different groups. It's basically they're supposed to be equitable to each other. Now, second round, when the researchers approached the same group of kids, they asked the kids to play the same game. However, this time they received different treatment. Group A, they were told, hey, do you want to play with this toy again? If you do, I'm going to give you a good player award, a little sticker or something, you know, with the gold and thing, and, you know, put it on and it's cool. They were told that already at the very beginning. Group B, nothing. They were told nothing. You want to play with the toy again? Go ahead. Group C, they were told nothing either, but then they received, after finished playing, they received the GPA, the good player award, that little sticker, like the group A. And their motivation toward that game and play was measured once again. They were at the beginning very same, but same to each other, basically same as each other. Now, second time, their motivation was very different. Group A, guess what? Their intrinsic motivation went down. Their extrinsic motivation went up. Group B, no change between the first and second time. Group C, what do you think about Group C? No change? Decrease? Going up? No change? Press you? No change, actually. So when the same thing, same little sticker, same reward, when it was actually either perceived as quote unquote maybe something like a bribe, right? It's the reason for you to do something. You were told at the very beginning before doing something, you do this, we're going to give you this. You do this, we're not going to punish you this way, so on and so forth. Then it over-justify. It introduced extrinsic motivation. If it was not, if it was perceived as a bonus, oh, I didn't do this for, a little, GPA hours, but I got the little sticker, nice, And when it's perceived as bonus like that, it doesn't spoil kids' intrinsic motivation. And that difference can be very important because what? How many of you want to work in fields like youth, sports coaching, any sort of like you involve other people teaching, you're teaching, coaching, mentoring, anything? You're going to move into the professional job where you're going to move up, hopefully, go become manager, become director. You're going to have dozens of people working under you. Now you want to motivate them in intrinsic way over here rather than this way, right? You want them to be here. You don't want to do over justification. If your people are enjoying their own work intrinsically or over here maybe, then that's good. Don't do that over justification by saying, hey, you want to pick up this work? Then I will give you, extra bonus or whatever. Now, these researchers, White and Sheldon, they took that idea to a very interesting context, professional sport. Do you know something called contract years in a professional sport? So each of us, I'm not professional, sport, but if you're a professional athlete, you would have a contract with a team, right? And it goes like 5 years. Sometimes it's 3 years, very short term, 1 year, 3 years. Sometimes it's probably 5 years. Sometimes it's like a massive deal if you're a really great player, like 10 years, so like $80 million. I don't know. We're talking about big game. But last year of your contract, that's basically called a contract years, right? They thought that same thing happened in a contract year because it's a massive extrinsic reward or potentially punishment. Ooh, Mervin, you did phenomenal, this contract year, especially, it's affected. Sure, this is a 5-year contract, but how you end that year, contract really matters. We know that. So Mervin really finished strong, and people are like, I'm gonna up your deal by 20%. Another 5 years, right? That's gonna happen. And I have to pick one more person. Josh, can I pick you? Right. Well, Josh, it was good, but it wasn't as strong as we hoped. Okay, I have to duck like 10%. You still want to play with us, right? So there's a little bit of potential punishment as well. So this is a major extrinsic motivation, reward, punishment. That this is where that happens. We know that. Well, those researchers thought that maybe players' motivation changed significantly during that before contract year, during that contract year, and then after contract year, especially after contract year. So they look at the NBA, which is Rob. NBA is basketball. Yes, National Basketball Association, I think, because he's wearing the Raptors stuff. MLB is MLB. Yes, baseball, Major League Baseball. Thank you. So for these things, and they looked at a couple key statistics for NBA basketball players. They looked at what is called a PER. I didn't know what that is. Player efficiency rating, which is about measuring players per minute performance while adjusting for the pace of the game. A league average PR is always 15. Now, this is what they found between the pre-contract. So they got a sample of some athletes, right? Because not all people at a given time are going into the contract year next year. But so they got a couple, dozens of athletes. Pre-contract year, their average was just below the, league average 15. So, okay, right? Contract year, their performance went up. Why? They know it. This matters. How well they do can give them like extra couple $1 million or less, couple $1 million less, or even like worse, right? And then the post-contract year though, their PR, when they statistically analyze, this was increased, this red one, statistically significant increase. And then their PR performance significantly dropped toward post-contract year. Even compared to the pre-contract year, their performance was significantly lower. Make sense? And their reasoning was that it was affected by motivation. That was affected by over-justification. Contract year, the idea of it, by definition, contaminate our intrinsic motivation. Some of them might have enjoyed the, team enjoy the play, enjoy the sport, but no longer over here, because whether they did well or not, it turned out to be about money now, right? And that impacted their performance. And PR, this thing is arguably more affected because it also, it's not about shooting average or anything. It also involves something like rebound. If rebound in a basketball or defense steal, getting the ball, kind of thing. So those are what we call hustle. You really have to go for it. You have to work toward it. More effort measure rather than just the talent or skill base. This one is baseball. How many of you know baseball? All right. So batting average. What do you think is a good batting average, give or take? Anybody? All right. Is this good batting average just below 2.275? Yeah, decent, right? Decent. So that was so that's decent, people. If you go to like 0.300, that's really good, basically. If you go like below 0.25, and it's like, depending on who you are. But anyway, pre-contract year, average of the sample was just below 0.275, which is pretty decent once again. It didn't change toward a contract year. It didn't increase it slightly, but it's not significant. And then after contract year, the performance decreases. Statistically significantly so, even compared to the pre-contract year seasons. Once again, the rationale here was that, yes, the over-justification happened. We're talking about potentially millions of dollars of reward, either given to you or taken away. Now you realize, and just this is a side note, if you ever do fantasy football, fantasy hockey, fantasy basketball, so on and so forth, there's a scientific evidence based off of which you can choose which player potentially. Some of them go through contract year, right? This is not the only factor though, right? Obviously, this is just one factor that can impact our motivation and therefore performance. Remember, the better kind of motivation leads to better performance. You do more effort, you're more thoughtful, you're more intentional, and you're sustained in your practice and the good performance and whatnot. Now, final part of this chapter 6 talk about this very important thing that we always do. Praise. Praise. We praise kids. If you ever worked with the children, like YMCA, summer camp, youth camp, right? Even parks, praise. We do. Now, actually, these researchers found that giving a praise to kids is a tricky business. It could either have a positive or negative effect on their intrinsic motivation. Just like over justification. Hey, Justine. And these researchers gave us some tips. So if you ever want to work with the children, or if you ever potentially thinking about becoming a parent, here's a tip. Your praise has to be sincere. And this is straightforward, right? But some of us try to interject some sarcasm in every other sentence, and that's not good when it comes to praise. Now, second one is a very tricky one, and I think it's culturally more of an issue in North American culture, maybe. Your praise has to be realistic to be effective. Otherwise, it can once again spoil your children's intrinsic motivation. When you say to 5-year-old playing a violin that you are the best in the world, they know that's not necessarily the case. Well, at least some of them do. Okay. To be more specific, what they're doing good, how they're improving, make your praise focus on the process and effort, right? How much they're getting better. Ooh, Jiao, you couldn't do that. Part of the finger, whatever the thing, musically, I have just 0, sorry, but now you can do, right? That kind of praise is very important. And it do not compare with other people, like do not compare it with other kids, do not compare with other prayers if you're ever coaching and giving a praise. Just praise them for their own sake, okay, on its own. So motivation, it's a tricky animal because it's fluctuating, always very dynamic. So it's very sensitive to the external stimuli, like over justification, social contagion we talked about, other people's motivation, or how you praise them too. So make sure you're treating them well. You're, influencing their motivation in a way that you want. Any question about motivation? All right. So then personality and attitude, chapter 7. Now, here's my reflection question to you, and I want you to actually think about it. Who are you? That's a loaded question, but what's your personality? What would the person who knows you well, like your parents maybe, or your family member, siblings if you have them, or twins, sorry, or your best friend, right? How would they describe your personality? What would it be the adjective that they use? Think about it, just 10 seconds. And if you're comfortable sharing, you can share. It's funny. Have you thought about how other people perceive you, describe you? What's the word that they would use? Okay, we gotta have to share because I want to listen to what the lady. No, 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 it doesn't have to. Oh, okay. So how? Okay, I have to turn off the microphone. It's off the microphone. Okay. What happened? I'm not sure it's good. Oh, because it's but how would they perceive? So what do you think? How would other people perceive us? Each of us. Sarcastic, that's good because a lot of people describe me as jackass. So that's great. What about you? Sweet. Hi.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Wherever you go. Good. Sarcastic has been doing things. Alexia, first down. What's your word? What's your personality? You're confident, strong person. Krista, what do you think? Anything? You didn't have to be good.
Yeah.
Organized. Works. I perceive that. I perceive you as working hard working. Yeah. Those are, part of the personality. Any interesting one? If you want to share. Did I turn it off? I don't think so. All right. Anything? What were the words that we heard?
My husband recently described me as a struggling perfectionist.
Struggling perfectionist. Very specific. That actually perfectionism or perfectionist tendency is one of the actually psychologically studied trait and personality. And more so in the competitive athletes and sports psychology rather than the leisure psychology, because, well, we do leisure, but apparently in a perfection, there's actually experts, Dr. John Dunn, who is retiring right now. But according to his research, there are two types of perfectionism. One is, what's the word? Basically good kind and bad kind, or striving perfectionism, which is a good thing actually, because you're making efforts, you're always trying to achieve, you're always trying to be better, do better, right? The other one, the other side is basically concern, the concern of the perfectionism, as in you're almost debilitated by all the things that you're not good at or you have not done, although you're pretty good, So be the good kind, right? Now, second question is, okay, with all those personality, other people's description, do you think that they would be able to predict your leisure choice? Do they align with the personality traits that people would use for you? Do they align with what you do during leisure? Like sometimes, for example, the simplest one is people say, oh, like Maddie, you're a very extroverted person. And then yes, sure, well, you would find Maddie at social events and different social settings. Well, that would be alignment, right? But sometimes it's not necessary. Do you find an alignment or not alignment? And the reason why we learn personality and also attitude this chapter is that we actually find some level of alignment, okay? So we're going to talk about 5 different things in this chapter, starting with the nature of personality, as in what is personality? And then the second thing is we're going to talk about what is called a big five types of personality that are very, very important. And then a couple other things that are more general and leisure specific, and then finally attitude. So what is personality? This is personality. The clock is correct right now, right? Okay, sure, because we went through daylight saving. The key point is enduring. Personality, don't get me wrong, as the author said, personality does change. So if you think that you're a little bit too perfectionistic, then you could change. You could be more of a let it go type of person eventually. But it shouldn't change next day. If Natalia is so chillax in the next class on Wednesday, I would be surprised and I would be concerned that we're gonna have a one-on-one meeting, right? But it could, for example, 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, 10 years, definitely. It should stay consistent across different circumstances too, though. Like it's not like you're extroverted in, let's say, classroom setting, and you're very, very not extroverted in, let's say, other setting like sports and work and everything else. That's not necessarily how personality works. Typically, personality stays the same across different life domains. And then personality research have two main focus. One is structure, which is about how those personality traits, the tendencies, psychological tendencies, behavioral tendencies, group together or do not group together. There's some different things. And that's called a structure. For example, similar things, similar personality. Let's say, what are the similar personalities that we know? Extrovert, let's take it extroversion as example. What's similar to extroversion? Yes. Outgoing, okay. So outgoingness and extroversion, are they the same thing or are they a similar but distinct thing? That's what we mean by structure. So our structure basic research try to look into that. Are they, for example, outgoingness, is it part of the extroversion? It actually is, kind of. It kind of is actually part of the extroversion. Now, even like opposite things. For example, what's the opposite of extroversion? Introversion, introverted, right? I'm going to use this side, sorry. Is extroversion so is it like, once again, is it like this? This is extroversion, this is high, this is low, introversion, high and low. So it's like two different factors. Is it like this? Or is it like just one continuum and one side is introversion, one side is extroversion? There are two very different things. In here, you cannot be introverted and extroverted at the same time. And over here, you could potentially. So the basic research actually look at it like a neurological basis sometimes too, like how brain works and whatnot. That actually, which is it? Are they the same, different things that kind of operates differently, independently, or are they on the same continuum? So that actually more of an extroversion means less of an introversion. It's actually this. It's actually this. You cannot be introverted and extroverted at the same time. I mean, you can be in a medium, somewhere in the middle, but you cannot be high on both. So that's the structure. And individual difference is using this knowledge, structured knowledge, to actually categorize, group different people and study group differences. Okay, so now we figure out what extroversion and introversion is. We group them, we identify different groups of people, introverted people, extroverted people, and we let them, for example, do different tests, right? So that we know that how, for example, under pressure, under stress, how different group of people perform. And that's a very important, sometimes knowledge to know as a manager and executive directors and whatnot. Like introverted people, if it's a high pressure, they need this kind of environments. If they're quiet, if they're alone time, they perform well. Extroverted people, that's the opposite. Okay, so now we know group difference. We're going to use that in, like, for example, human resource management, so on and so forth. To study all of that, well, actually, sorry. Well, to study that and also answer this question of where does this thing called a personality, enduring traits come from? We study twins. Yes. Sorry, a lot of eye contacts there. Really, the question here is the classic one, nature versus nurture, right? The question of what degree personality is hereditary that you're getting from your parents. We specifically study twins that are separated. That sounds horrible. I know, right? Twins that are separated. But here's the reason, and I hope you understand this table because it's important. There are two kinds of twins, right? One is identical, what we call identical, called a monozygotic. The other type is called non-identical or dizygotic twins. So basically, they're genetically monozygotic twins. They have basically the same genetic makeup and information. Dizygotic twins, they don't. Now, they can be further divided into two groups by whether they're raised together or apart, raised together or apart. So we have 4 groups, 2 by 2, 4 groups. Now, if you think about what kind of factors affecting their personality and especially similarity in their personality, we know monozygotic twins, identical twins who are raised together, there's both genetic, presumably, and also environmental factors. For example, what kind of, well, you had the same parents, right? Parents have the same parenting, practices, family traditions, family values. You were in the same country, in the same culture, in a probably similar socioeconomic status, so on and so forth. Those things affect who you are in a similar ways. Now, monozygotic twins that are raised apart, only genetics, because they were separated at the birth. Some of them never met each other. Well, we actually focus on the twins who never met each other, basically. Dizygotic twins, if they were raised together, their similarity should be mostly influenced by environment. And then if they were raised apart, there should be nothing that's actually influencing their similarities. Now, you can see this group, monozygotic twins that are raised apart separately, they're the ones who are kind of quote unquote purely influenced by genetics. And this is why this group is very important. And we're going to compare how similar these twins are to each other within the pair, right? In terms of personality. And then look at that and compare with other group to see how powerful genetic information is. Now, this is classic study by Tellegen and a colleague in psychology. And they studied 3 personality traits: extroversion, what's called neuroticism. We're going to talk about that, but it's basically emotional instability, lack of stability. And then finally, conscientiousness, which is about how organized you are, how orderly you are, okay? Here is the monozygotic twin raised separate. These numbers, greater the number, more correlation, stronger the correlation, greater the similarity. So compare that, for example, with these twins, monozygotic identical twin raised together. This number is actually a little bit different, quite different, extroversion. But the other one, not really different, right? These children, dizygotic twins who are raised together, they're influenced by environments only. Compared to that, you can see, these numbers are somewhat stronger, almost nearly twice, or actually more than twice, about 30% bigger, so on and so forth. So you can see genetics have quite a bit of information, actually, impact on who we are in terms of personality. So this monozygotic twin raised apart, that's the key. This is a key group because they're theoretically purely influenced by genetic, their similarity is. And we're trying to figure out what's the percentage, to what extent genetic information is important. Zuckerman and, well, actually, only Zuckerman. They did research, similar twin study with the sensation seeking. That's another personality we're going to learn later. About 50% of the variability or differences in a personality trait was explained by genetic information. So that's heritable, 50% based on their study. Now, what's more important is this one, newest meta-analysis. So studying and reviewing a bunch of studies. So this study had over hundreds of thousands of people. That's a lot of twins. And they found about 40% of variability in our personality trait is hereditary. 40%. That's quite a bit, actually. Now that's where personality is coming from. Now, why is it important? Personality is important in terms of leisure. In other words, compared with other life domains, non-leisure like work, education, and whatnot, what are the unique relationship between personality and leisure, right? And then the author, textbook author, provided this question. Well, sorry, this point. Do you agree with this? Do you agree with this? Do you see this happening in your life, in your leisure life? No? Why not? Yes? How so? All right, discuss. Let's hear. Do you get the point? This point, the authors, textbook author said, well, leisure and personality is related because leisure may be a context for self-expression. We can show who we are, truer version, more real version of who you are. And if so, personality should matter more in leisure compared to other life domains. Do you agree with this? Does that apply to you or it doesn't? Quickly. So, once again, what do you think? What do you think, Colton, Krista, Alexia?
I think 100% because I mean, like look at social media, for example, and then like everything that you're trying to do kind of correlate.
So are you saying that in a social media, what we post and
Well,
things
that's
like
just one
that,
example.
yeah, what we post is more representative of who we are, or not?
Yes and no.
Yes, I like that.
think Stuff that you follow is. but
Okay.
Stuff that you actually post about is fake. Because you're trying to promote your best self.
The impression management,
Yeah.
right? You want to look good on a social media. So you may realize these authors are old. They were old. They have never used social media. I know this as a fact, actually. I know them. So maybe they didn't know that, right? So social media may be a big factor that changed everything. I mean, not everything to an extent. But what about, okay, so what about offline stuff that you do? Offline stuff. Sports, other hobbies, are they representative of who you are? Yoga, okay. Do you think that's when you're doing yoga, do you feel like you are more in tune or closer to who you really are? Like you're not trying to be who you're not. Make sense? You feel that way? Okay.
I think it's situational because if I'm playing sports, I'm a dick, but like that's not what it really happens.
Sports is an interesting one too. Keep scoring. Very good one. Okay, so that's an interesting discussion. Okay, let me hear. What do you think? Do you feel you're consistent? Marvin, did you just came here and talk to Josh? Awesome, thank you. So let's hear. What was the thing? What was your conclusion? Do you agree with this or don't agree with this? Curtis, what's up? Mm-hmm.
You might choose to express your extroversion and your personality in work and in like other settings, and then
Right.
find time to do your kind of express, whereas like if you're introverted and you're a very reserved person, but say you have a partner that wants to go out with friends, you might have an obligation to go out with your partner and go see people even though you want to be by yourself.
Okay.
So it kind of depends on like external factors
Okay.
to a certain extent.
Have you heard that over there? Jiao, you good? So Curtis was talking about, like, for example, external factors, one of them being like free time availability, how busy you are. And if you're an extroverted person, but if you're too very busy and you don't have a lot of free time, you may be, watching Netflix and really trying to relax and rest by yourself more of. And you don't have the energy and, opportunity to be extroverted, and you use that, you channel that personality in your work. Talking about yourself, maybe
Yes.
a little bit. Yeah, got that. I got the vibe here now. What else? We had some interesting conversation over there. Chrissy, yeah.
Like it's situational.
You mean
So,
Colton? Yeah, okay.
yeah, he's talked about it being situational, so I talked about like when I go to yoga, I feel very calm and like more, I don't know, relaxed, I guess.
Yeah.
Whereas like when I go to ball hockey, I'm not as calm and it's a lot more like higher energy.
The aggressive side of you come out.
Yeah.
Ooh. But do you relate to that? Probably, right? Depending on different activity, different social situation. Almost like you're not a different person, but different sides of you come out a little bit too. Yes, it does. You don't want to see me when I'm writing and playing games seriously. I literally wear a headphone and then I talk to my wife like, honey, I'm playing something difficult. So, and I just go on. Anyway, I can totally relate to that as well. And we were talking about, well, a few things. So two big things. One is the social media. This group, Colton, Alexia, and Krista. Social media. What do we post? Arguably is free. You can post whatever, right? Whatever picture, whatever post. But is it true representation of who you are? Like how many of you had that quote unquote vulnerable post? You're talking about, all the big concerns that you have in your life on the social media, like last week or last month. Seriously, how many of you? I don't. I might talk to my wife, but not really. Another thing we're talking about was the sports, for example. And we know that many sports, different kind of sports, is gendered, right? Some sports is known to be more physical contact, aggressive type of sports, right? And then depending on who you are, you channel that side of maybe you kind of internalize that and you behave like that in a certain sports context, for example. Just, that's the gendered nature of socialization environments that are affecting you. So now this might have been a little bit of a naive sentence. And remember, these authors, and I told earlier, they never use social media. And I know as a fact, I know them. They never use the social media. So that might be something. But there is a little bit of evidence, and this one is old evidence by Diane Sando. She did an experience sampling study with the American adults. And what she found was that actually internal vantage point, meaning people's definition of leisure, right? People are considering certain activity because it's experience sampling methods, so many bunch of surveys. People are considering certain activity as leisure from their perspective, their participants, participants' perspective, right? Research participants. That was correlated with their truer self or their sense of who they are, their authentic sense of who they are. As in, if they consider certain activity as leisure from their perspective, they're more likely to feel true to who they were in that activity. Make sense? So there's some correlation, some evidence to that statement that was more so in an informal social setting. So maybe and also not obviously social media back then. The study was 1980, okay? There was more of in-person stuff. Again, old study experiment found that when there was more freedom and less instruction in a certain context, which happens a lot in leisure, personality trait affected our behaviors, experiences more than a situation and environments. And they studied a personality trait called locus of control, right? But these are old evidence, so it would be very interesting to actually test it again. Now, what we're talking about would be probably actually a good question to ask in the next critical chapter, by the way, reflection, because it's chapter 7. To summarize that, the chapter provided this table to summarize these, findings from 2 different studies. Personality traits, so traits are personality, okay, are more influential when setting the situations are familiar, informal, or maybe private, and there's little to no instruction. So it's more unstructured. And there's much freedom and choice given to you, maybe. When the situations are influential, now opposite side, right? When the situation settings are novel, formal, public, novel as in like new to you. Instructions are detailed, so it's a structured experience. And there's little to no freedom, choice, so on and so forth. I didn't underline right side because they're basically directly opposite to the left side. So if you get the left side, you got the right side, okay? So maybe this is how things are, how these traits, personality, and situations impact our behavior more or less. And then a lot of leisure happen on the left side. So that's their argument, the textbook author. That's why it's important to learn personality for leisure practitioners. Now, the second part of this chapter talk about what is called a Big Five. Big Five, there's actually another name, but it's okay. Big Five is a framework of the major personality traits. And if you have to, well, this is a way to remember. One way I heard. Those 5 things are called openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism. If you take the first characters, it becomes ocean. So that's one way. Oh, it's ocean. And one way to memorize. Each trait is continuum. Like for example, for extroversion, we talked about extroversion and introversion. This is continuum, right? So each of this is basically continuum. And then together, they can distinguish a lot of people in different ways. And it seems to differentiate people really well in terms of their behaviors and emotions and whatnot. Now, there's this little GIF, that picture. They're supposed to be representing these 5 women. They're supposed to be representing the Big Five. Just to test yourself before going through the material, which woman do you think is representing which personality traits? Just a game. I'm going to give you an answer in like 1 minute, less than 1 minute. How are we doing with the time? Because this is 1 minute late. Oh, we're good. Once again, conscientiousness means you're organized. You love order, structure. Extroversion, you know that? Agreeableness, that means you're easy to say yes, basically. You're willing to help. Openness to new experience, different types of perspectives, different cultures. Neuroticism is once again emotional instability. All right, you got that guess? Let's begin with this woman, this person. Which emotional trait do you think this person represents? You can shout. There's no point attached. Neuroticism. Next person, this person. Extroversion, why? Because she's talking, no stop. And the woman in green? Agreeableness, because she's like, yes. The purple, the woman in purple, she has a notepad. Conscientiousness, yes, structure, detail-oriented. And the last person is about openness to experience because she's artsy. And as you can see, like arts, for example, arts example, conversation, socialization example, Big Five matters in terms of our leisure experience. So this is, I think, where we stop. And we're going to go through the Big Five next class. But a question, once again, what's your personality? Maybe you can ask your best friend or your parents, how do you describe my personality? That's a scary thing to ask, actually. But they will say probably something nice to you. So, and then think about how that affects maybe your leisure. And if it's not actually aligned with your leisure, maybe you can pursue different leisure activities that better align with your personality. So think about that. All right. Happy Monday. I know it's daylight saving, it's sleepy. If you need an extra cup of coffee, you're allowed. I give you permission to get second cup of coffee.